You think your trading decisions are objective. You believe the analysis you completed at your desk belongs to you, your observations, your logic, your conviction. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Before you opened your terminal this morning, how long did you spend on your phone? How many threads did you scroll through? How many arguments about the direction of a stock did you absorb without meaning to? How many panicked voices did you let inside your skull before you placed a single trade? Your nervous system is being hijacked, not by the market, not by the institutions, by a digital virus spreading through every feed, every comment section, every real-time alert designed to keep your eyes locked to a screen. Every time you scroll through a volatile feed, you are absorbing the collective panic of thousands of strangers. And that panic is distorting your market bias in ways you cannot see until the damage is already done. I have watched men make fortunes by trusting their own observations and lose those same fortunes the moment they began listening to the crowd. In my time, the crowd gathered at bucket shops, shouting tips across smoke-filled rooms. Today, that same crowd lives in your pocket, whispering into your nervous system 24 hours a day. The method of transmission has changed. The outcome has not. Stop letting emotional contagion override your mechanical edge before you blow your account. Because this is not a discipline problem. This is not a strategy problem. This is a contamination problem. And the source is the screen you cannot seem to put down. The digital nervous system. Hijack. Here is what nobody is telling you about the platforms you use every day. They are not neutral. They were never designed to be. The algorithmic architecture of the social feeds most active in trading communities is built on a single, ruthless principle: keep the user engaged at all costs. And the most reliable way to keep a human being engaged is not through joy or curiosity. It is through threat, high arousal, negative content, panic, outrage, conflict. These are the inputs the algorithm prioritizes because these are the states in which the human nervous system is least able to look away. You are not choosing to stay on the feed. Your biology is choosing for you. When you read a thread where someone is screaming that a market is collapsing, when you watch a post go viral about a position being liquidated, when you see 300 replies all echoing the same catastrophic interpretation of a price move, something happens inside your body that has nothing to do with your strategy. Your amygdala fires. That small, ancient structure deep in your brain, the one designed to protect you from predators on an open plain, cannot distinguish between a physical threat and a social one. It reads collective panic, the same way it reads the sound of footsteps behind you in the dark. It interprets the alarm in 1,000 strangers' posts as real danger, and it shifts your entire cognitive apparatus out of the prefrontal cortex, where logic lives, where your trading rules live, where your risk parameters live, and into survival mode. In survival mode, you do not analyze, you react. In survival mode, you do not execute a plan, you execute fear. And here is where it becomes insidious. Most traders never notice the shift. They believe they are still thinking clearly. They believe the anxiety rising in their chest is simply excitement, or heightened focus, or market awareness. They do not recognize that they have already left their own judgment behind. What has replaced it is something researchers call mimetic desire. You begin to unconsciously adopt the biases of the loudest voices in your timeline. Not because those voices are correct, not because their analysis is sound, but because the human brain, under threat, defaults to imitation. We seek safety in consensus. We mistake volume for truth. We confuse the most repeated opinion with the most accurate one. The loudest voice in your feed is rarely the most informed. It is the most frightened, and fear spreads faster than reason has ever traveled. By the time you open your trading terminal, you are already contaminated. Your market bias has been reshaped not by price, not by volume, not by the signals your system was built to read, but by the emotional residue of a digital crowd you never chose to join. The mechanics of collective panic. There is a specific moment where social media frenzy triggers a physical impulse to over-leverage, and most traders never see it coming. Let me show it to you in slow motion. A piece of news drops. It does not need to be confirmed. It does not need to be accurate. In the digital landscape of 2026, all that is required is that it be alarming. Within seconds, it has been quoted, amplified, distorted, and sent through 17 feeds simultaneously. By the time it reaches you, it has already passed through the emotional filters of hundreds of people, each one adding their own layer of anxiety, certainty, or outrage. What you receive is not information, it is processed panic. And processed panic creates something I call the volatility feedback loop. The social outrage inflames sentiment. Inflamed sentiment drives impulsive positioning. Impulsive positioning creates erratic price action. Erratic price action generates new content, new screams, new analyses, new predictions, all delivered at a speed the human mind was never designed to process. And the cycle accelerates. The trader sitting inside this loop does not experience it as a loop. They experience it as urgency. They feel that they must act now, that waiting is dangerous, that their caution is costing them. Now, the artificial sense of emergency created by hyper-fast information flow dismantles the single most important psychological asset a trader can possess: the willingness to wait. I built my largest fortunes by waiting, not by reacting, not by following the noise, by sitting still while the crowd exhausted itself, and then moving with precision when the real signal emerged. But you cannot hear the real signal when the noise has reached this volume. There is something even more dangerous happening beneath the surface. As a trader spends more time inside this loop, they begin to lose something quiet and vital: their internal conviction. The certainty that comes from doing your own analysis, identifying your own setup, defining your own risk. That conviction gets replaced piece by crowd validation. That you begin to check whether others agree with your trade before you take it. You begin to hesitate when the crowd moves against your position, not because your thesis has been invalidated by the market, but because a stranger with a large following has just posted something bearish. You outsource your risk management to people who do not know your account size, your risk tolerance, or your strategy. You have stopped trading your edge. You have started trading the crowd's emotion, and the crowd, I can promise you, is not profitable. Before we go further, if this is landing, if you are already identifying the moments when the feed has shaped your decisions more than your own analysis has, then this channel exists precisely for you. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like. Share this with the trader in your life who you have watched blow up an account while holding their phone. The work we do here is not about shortcuts. It is about seeing clearly. Stay with me. The moment of execution, distortion. There is a moment. Specific, identifiable, repeatable, where the contamination reveals itself. You have been watching a position develop. The setup is there. You have seen this pattern before. Your system recognizes it. Under normal conditions, you would enter cleanly, set your stop, and let your edge work. But today, before you sat down at your terminal, you spent 30 minutes scrolling. And now, something is different. Your entry criteria are met, but you hesitate. Not because the setup has changed, because a voice from the feed is still echoing in the back of your mind. Someone with 40,000 followers said this sector is about to collapse. They sounded very certain. Or, the opposite happens. The setup is marginal. Your system says, this is not a high probability opportunity, but the feed is electric. Everyone is piling in. The momentum feels undeniable. You feel the pull. You enter. Not because your edge says to, because the crowd's excitement has colonized your nervous system and you have mistaken their dopamine for your conviction. This is execution distortion. and it presents in micro-behaviors that, once you learn to identify them, become impossible to ignore. You begin second-guessing entries that previously felt automatic. You find yourself opening the charts and then immediately opening the feed again, and as if the market needs the crowd's approval to do what the chart is already showing you it intends to do. You size up on trades that feel socially validated, regardless of your actual risk parameters. You size down, or exit early, on trades that are structurally sound, but that the crowd has turned against. You are not trading the market anymore. You are trading the opinion of the room. Now contrast this with the state of a trader who has protected their analytical environment. They sat down at a desk that does not have a social feed open. Their morning preparation involved raw data, price, volume, structure. They reviewed their own prior trades, not other people's positions. Their body is calm. Their breath is regular. Their focus is on a single question. What is the market showing me right now? When a setup presents itself, they execute without ceremony. When a setup is absent, they wait without anxiety. There is no residue of other people's panic in their nervous system. The only voice in the room is the market's, and they have learned to hear it. The difference between these two traders is not intelligence. It is not experience. It is not capital. It is environment. One of them has allowed their execution to be distorted by a digital frenzy that masks the actual signals. The other has not. The actual market signals are always there. Price does not lie. Volume does not fabricate. Structure does not panic. But you cannot hear any of it through the noise you have chosen to carry into the room with you. The contrarian clarity. The toxic feedback loops of 2026 are designed to destroy your real-time market clarity through hyper-volatile sentiment. Let me be clear about what that means. This is not an accident. The platforms that carry most market commentary are not failing to protect your objectivity. They are succeeding at their actual purpose, which has nothing to do with your objectivity. Their purpose is engagement. Your attention is their revenue. And the most reliable way to capture your attention is to keep your nervous system in a low-grade state of arousal, not quite panic, but never quite calm. Alert. Watchful. Dependent. If you are struggling with impulsive execution, you are not lacking discipline. You are suffering from emotional contagion. And the distinction matters enormously, because the solution to a discipline problem is willpower, and willpower is finite. The solution to a contamination problem is decontamination, and decontamination requires distance, but not effort. The traders who are consistently profitable are not the loudest voices in any feed. They are not the ones debating direction in the comments. They are the ones who have learned to disconnect from the digital hive mind entirely during the hours when execution demands clarity. This is not isolation. This is not ignorance. This is a sovereign choice. The crowd will always be afraid. The crowd will always be chasing. The crowd will always be reacting. That is the nature of crowds. And there is an enormous amount of money to be made by standing on the opposite side of crowd behavior, not because you know something they do not, but because you have not been infected by what they feel. Reclaim the edge that the crowd is losing, not by being smarter than them, by being calmer than them, by being more alone than them, and by refusing to let their panic become your signal. I learned this through devastation. I have sat in rooms full of men who all knew with absolute certainty that the market was about to move in a particular direction. The certainty was palpable. The logic seemed irrefutable. And when every man in the room agreed, I learned to become suspicious. Because certainty without variance is not conviction. It is contagion. When everyone sees the same thing at the same time, it has already been priced in, or it is wrong. Either way, the trade belongs to the man who arrived before the crowd, not the one who joined it. The contrarian edge is not about being contrarian for its own sake. It is about maintaining the cognitive sovereignty to form your own view in your own space. Yes, before the crowd's emotions have had the opportunity to colonize your judgment. Building the physiological circuit breaker. There is a specific moment where social media frenzy triggers a physical impulse to over-leverage, and most traders do not see it coming. But it is mappable, and what can be mapped can be intercepted. The transmission runs from the screen into the eyes, into the nervous system, into the body. Most traders live entirely in the cognitive layer. They think about their trades, analyze their trades, debate their trades in their minds. But the contamination does not enter through thought. It enters through physiology. Through the shallow breath that sets in after 10 minutes of scrolling a volatile feed. Through the tightening of the jaw. And through the slight forward lean toward the screen that signals the amygdala has engaged. Through the restlessness in the legs, the diminished peripheral vision, the narrowing of cognitive focus to a single obsessive question: is it going up or down? These are not metaphors. These are biological events. And they occur before you have formed a single conscious thought about making a trade. This is why willpower alone cannot solve the problem. By the time you are consciously deciding whether to take a trade, your body has already voted. And if your body has been contaminated by social media-induced arousal, that vote will be for action, for urgency, for size, regardless of what your system tells you. The first protocol is somatic tracking. Before you open your terminal, pause, take 20 seconds and run a brief physical inventory. Where is your breath sitting? Is it in your chest, shallow, rapid, reactive? Or is it in your belly, slow and full? Is your jaw relaxed or held? Are your hands open or gripped? Are you leaning forward with urgency or sitting back with patience? This is not mysticism. This is data. Your body is giving you a real-time readout of your nervous system state, and that state is the most honest predictor of your execution quality available to you. If the inventory reveals arousal, tight chest, shallow breath, forward lean, a sense of urgency you cannot fully explain, you are not ready to execute. The trade may be valid, the setup may be real, but you are not in the state required to execute it well. The second protocol is digital distancing. Not permanently, not as an act of abstinence, as a structural separation between two distinct activities that must not contaminate each other. Your social consumption environment and your analytical environment cannot be the same environment. This is not negotiable. The moment you allow market commentary and live chart analysis to occupy the same window, the same session, the same psychological space, you have opened the door to contamination. Practical application. Establish a defined window before your trading session during which the feed is closed. Not minimized. Not paused. Closed. 30 minutes is a minimum. 60 is better. During this window, you engage only with raw data. Price, volume, structure, your own prior notes. The market itself, not the market's audience. After your session ends, you may re-engage with the social layer if you choose. But during the hours when your execution quality determines your financial outcomes, the crowd does not get access to your nervous system. The third protocol is the reset breath. This is a physiological intervention, not a psychological one, for the moments when exposure has already occurred. When you have scrolled before, you should have. When a viral thread has reached you and left its residue. 4 counts in through the nose. Hold for 4. 6 counts out through the mouth. Repeat 3 times. This is not relaxation. This is a deliberate activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the biological counterweight to the amygdala's alarm response. It is the fastest evidence-based method available to shift the brain from survival mode back into executive function, back into the prefrontal cortex, or back into the space where your rules live. 3 cycles, less than 90 seconds, between your last social exposure and the moment you open your terminal. This is your circuit breaker. This is the gap between the feed and the trade. And in that gap lives everything that separates a professional execution from an emotional one. If you are watching this and recognizing yourself in what is being described, if you have sat in front of a terminal still carrying the noise of a feed you should have closed, then the next few minutes of this video are the most important you will hear. Stay with me. And if someone in your trading circle is in this pattern right now, share this video with them. The work you are doing by watching and reflecting is already more than most traders ever do. Like the video if you want more content like this. Why, it tells me you are serious, and I will keep making it. The Sovereign Execution Framework. A trading account is not destroyed all at once. It is destroyed by a series of decisions that each seemed reasonable at the time, each one slightly displaced from the trader's actual edge by the residue of someone else's emotion. 5 degrees off course at the beginning of a voyage becomes 100 miles off course by the destination. The Sovereign Execution Framework is not a complex system. It is a set of structural decisions made in advance that protect your execution environment from contamination before contamination occurs. The first component is the information diet. Not all information is equal. Not all inputs carry the same cost to your objectivity. A raw price data is neutral. It shows you what is happening without telling you how to feel about it. Volume data is neutral. Historical structure is neutral. Your own trading journal is neutral. Market commentary is not neutral. Hot takes are not neutral. Sentiment polls, viral threads, position screenshots with large gains, live-streamed reactions to breaking news, none of these are neutral. They carry the emotional state of their creator embedded within them, and when you consume them, you inherit that state. A curated information diet means being ruthlessly honest about what category each input belongs to. It means defining in advance which inputs are permitted in your pre-session preparation and which ones are not. Yet it means building the diet when you are calm and committed to process, not in the moment when the feed is in front of you and the thread is compelling and everyone seems to know something you do not. Build the diet now. Write it down. Not the inputs you think you should allow. The inputs that have demonstrably improved your execution quality when you have used them, and those alone. The second component is the neutrality window. Between the last moment you engaged with social content and the first moment you open your terminal, there must be a defined gap. A mandatory transition period in which the nervous system is allowed to return to baseline. This window is not wasted time. It is preparation time. The most important preparation that exists in trading is the preparation of your psychological state. And psychological state cannot be hurried. It must be cultivated. During the neutrality window, close the social applications. Review your trading plan. Read your rules. Look at the charts from a structural perspective only, not with a directional bias already installed by the crowd. Ask yourself what the market is showing you, not what the feed told you it would show you. 20 minutes is a minimum. If you have been exposed to a particularly volatile or emotionally charged cycle of content, extend it to 45. The question to ask at the end of the window is simple. Do I have a directional bias right now? And if so, is it mine? Did it come from the chart, from the structure, from my own analysis? Or did it arrive with the panic of strangers and simply remain? If you cannot honestly answer that the bias is yours, you are not ready. As the third component is the resilient feedback loop. Over time, every reinforced behavior creates a new pathway. Every time you resist the pull of the feed during trading hours and trade cleanly from your own analysis, you strengthen the neural association between analytical isolation and execution quality. Every time you implement the circuit breaker and feel the difference in your decisions, the protocol becomes less effortful. This is not willpower. This is conditioning. The same process that conditioned you to reach for the phone when the market moved can condition you to reach for your breath, your rules, and your own observations instead. Track the relationship explicitly. Keep a simple log. Note whether you engaged with social content in the 2 hours before your session, and note your execution quality for that session. Rate your adherence to your rules. Rate your emotional state during the trade. Over time, the correlation will be visible, undeniable, not because someone told you it would be there, but because your own data confirmed it. That log becomes one of the most powerful trading tools you own because it gives you evidence-based reason to maintain the protocol even on the days when the feed is compelling and the discipline feels effortful. You are rewarding yourself for silence, not the silence of inaction, the silence of sovereignty, the silence of a trader who has decided that their own clarity is worth more than the crowd's noise. The physiological breakdown. I want to walk you through the breakdown, not in the abstract, in the body, but in the specific physical sequence of events that ends with an over-leveraged position on a trade you never should have taken. It begins with a single notification. You are sitting at your desk. The session has not yet begun. You pick up your phone, just to check, just briefly, and the first thing you see is a thread that has already attracted 4,000 responses. The title is alarming. The tone is certain. People are reacting. Your eyes move faster. Your breath shortens. You do not notice either. You scroll. More certainty. More alarm. The price is moving. Everyone agrees on the direction. You feel the pull, the gathering momentum of collective conviction. And somewhere in your body, not in your mind, you begin to lean forward. 10 minutes pass. 20. You have not formed a trade idea. The trade idea has formed in you. And it arrived through the emotional field of the crowd and installed itself in your nervous system while you were still telling yourself you were simply gathering information. You open your terminal. The chart confirms the direction the crowd has been screaming about, or maybe it does not, but your confirmation bias filters out the contradiction. You find evidence for what you already feel. You size up. Because the certainty feels overwhelming, because missing this move, after everything the feed told you about it, would feel unbearable. You enter, and somewhere in the first minutes after entry, the market does what markets always do. It moves against your position, briefly, naturally, as part of the ordinary volatility of any trade. But your nervous system, already depleted from 30 minutes of high arousal content, it reads the move as disaster. The panic that was sitting in your chest, borrowed from the crowd, absorbed through the screen, now attaches itself to your loss. You either exit prematurely, surrendering your edge to your fear, or you add to the position, chasing the conviction the crowd gave you that the market owes you a winner. Neither outcome serves you. This is the breakdown. Mapped, visible, preventable. The moment the notification arrived and you chose to engage with it unprotected, you had already begun the sequence. Everything that followed was biology executing a predetermined script. I do not tell you this to make you feel helpless. I tell you this because understanding the sequence is the first step to breaking it. You cannot interrupt what you cannot see. But once you can see it, once you know where the contamination enters and how it moves through the body, where it surfaces in your execution, you have power over it. Not perfect power, not immunity, but the power of awareness. And awareness, developed into habit, developed into protocol, is the closest thing to armor that this business offers. Director note, the trader at the desk, the phone on the table. They look at the phone. They look at the charts. They look at the phone. They set it face down. They turn to the charts. The sequence is complete. That single choice, that pause, is the story. The market that speaks in silence. The market has always spoken most clearly to the man who was still enough to hear it. This is not a new truth. I understood it in the bucket shops of my youth, before technology made silence a discipline rather than a default. When the tape moved, yes, it moved with intention, carrying the genuine weight of buying and selling decisions, stripped of commentary, stripped of narrative, stripped of the collective noise that obscures its actual direction. The tape did not care what men were saying about it. It only showed what men were doing with their money, and those were very different things. Today, the gap between what is said and what is done has never been wider. The volume of commentary is unlimited. Every price move generates instant interpretation from thousands of sources simultaneously. The noise is exponential. And within that noise, the actual signal, the movement of capital, the shifting of real supply and demand, has not changed in its nature. It is still there. It still speaks. But you must be very quiet to hear it. And the traders who are building sustainable edges in this environment are not the loudest. They are not the most visible. They are not the most followed. They are the ones who have developed the capacity to sit inside the silence of their own analytical process while the crowd generates noise around them. They have built what I can only describe as a kind of professional solitude. Not loneliness, solitude. The chosen quietness of a craftsman who knows that the quality of their work depends on their ability to focus without distraction. I have been asked many times what the loneliest moments of my career were. People expect me to describe the losses, the bankruptcies, the periods of financial devastation. But the loneliest moments were the ones where I was most certain I was right. And the crowd was loudly, publicly, virally certain that I was wrong. In those moments, the only thing I had was the tape. The only evidence that mattered was what price and volume were doing, not what the room was saying. And I had to trust that evidence against the full weight of collective opinion. That trust, that sovereign relationship with the primary evidence of the market itself, is the most valuable asset a trader can develop. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be copied. It must be built, trade by trade, protocol by protocol, session by session, through the repeated practice of choosing your own observation over the crowd's interpretation. When you install the circuit breakers, when you curate the information diet, when you enforce the neutrality window, you are not just protecting your execution quality, but you are building the psychological infrastructure for that trust. And from that trust, eventually, comes the kind of clarity that allows you to act when everyone else is frozen, to hold when everyone else is exiting, to wait when everyone else is chasing. Not because you are braver than they are, because you are not carrying what they are carrying. The only thing that belongs to you, there is very little in the market that belongs to you. Not the direction of price, not the timing of a move, not the behavior of other participants. Not the macro forces that shape conditions, not the algorithms that execute millions of decisions in the time it takes you to draw a breath. None of that belongs to you. What belongs to you is singular, irreducible, and it is the only thing the market cannot take unless you surrender it willingly. Your response. Your response to the signal in the chart. Your response to the loss in your account. Your response to the viral thread on the feed, your response to the fear in your body, your response to the certainty of the crowd and the loneliness of your own contrary view. Every protocol in this video, the somatic tracking, the digital distancing, the neutrality window, the reset breath, the curated information diet, the feedback loop, every single one of them exists for the same purpose: to protect the quality of your response. To keep your response anchored to your own analysis, your own system, your own edge, rather than to the emotional state of a crowd that will never be accountable for the consequences of what it made you feel. The market does not reward the trader who felt the most. It rewards the trader who responded best. And responding well requires the one thing the digital age makes most difficult: the ability to be alone with the primary evidence, to form a view in the absence of the crowd's voice, and to execute that view without needing validation from anyone beyond the tape itself. You will be tempted. Every morning you will be tempted by the feed, by the commentary, by the certainty of people who sound very sure about things they cannot actually know. And there will be days when you give in to that temptation, when the contamination enters and you do not catch it before it reaches your execution. Those days will happen. They happen to everyone. The question is not whether you will be contaminated. The question is whether you have built the architecture to detect it, interrupt it, and reset before the damage reaches your account. Build the architecture. Trust the protocols. Trade the market, not the crowd. Because the market will always be there, speaking quietly to anyone disciplined enough to listen. And the crowd will always be there too, screaming into every available channel, offering their panic as if it were wisdom. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not more information. It is not a better strategy. It is the silence you are willing to protect and the sovereignty of judgment you are willing to defend. Day after day, protocol after protocol, trade after trade. That silence is your edge. Protect it. If this reached you, if somewhere in this video you recognized a moment when the feed shaped your trade before you even knew it was happening, then drop a comment below and tell me what that moment looked like. Not to confess, to name it. Because naming it is the beginning of interrupting it. Subscribe, like the video, share it with a trader who you have watched carry the crowd's panic into their own positions. They may not know what is happening to them, but after this video, they will. More content like this is coming. Not tips, not strategies, the deep work, the work that actually changes how you trade. The market is waiting. Come to it with clarity.